Hey, what's going on, guys? John Lee here with another awesome video. Welcome back to my community if you're a subscriber. If not, you should consider subscribing right now. In this video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about drone laws and jurisdiction and implementing drone laws at a city or state level. And in the context of, we'll just jump right in and I'll read directly off the FAA's page for you. And I hope this is useful and educational for many, if not all, or some of you out there, especially some of you city and local officials that are looking to possibly, promote some of these types of policies. In the context of unmanned aircraft systems, UAS, popularly called drones, the Department of Transportation's UAS Integration Pilot Program, IPP, directed by the President, will provide the FAA with insight on how to best involve local jurisdictions in the integration of UAS into the airspace. So we'll click on that and then it brings this up, and I wanted to read it to you. So this is from December 17th of 2015. So it may go back a little ways, but I think that it's probably still pretty relevant. Let's hear what it has to say, and don't forget, smash that like and subscribe button for me and ring the bell for notifications. Just helps the YouTube algorithms feed everybody with a bunch of fake news. Here's the background from the Federal Aviation Administration Office of the Chief Counsel. State and local regulation of unmanned aircraft systems. Fact sheet. So anybody that wants to fact check this, help themselves. So here's the background. Unmanned aircraft systems are aircraft subject to regulation by the FAA to ensure safety of flight and safety of people and property on the ground. States and local jurisdictions are increasingly exploring regulation of UAS or proceeding to enact legislation relating to UAS operations. In 2015, approximately 45 states have considered restrictions on UAS. In addition, public comments on the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA's proposed rule, operation, and certification of small unmanned aircraft systems, docket number FAA-2015-0150, expressed concern about the possible impact of state and local laws on UAS operations. Incidents involving unauthorized and unsafe use of small remote-controlled aircraft has risen dramatically. Pilots' reports of interactions with suspected unmanned aircraft have increased from 238 sightings in all of 2014 to 780 through August of this year, which was 2015. During this past summer, the presence of multiple UAS in the vicinity of wildfires in the western U.S. prompted firefighters to ground their aircraft on several occasions, which is pretty messed up. Shouldn't be doing that. And if you were Part 107, you would already know that. Not interfering with, first responders. Let's see. This fact sheet is intended to provide basic information about the federal regulatory framework for use by states and localities when considering laws affecting UAS. State and local restrictions affecting UAS operations should be consistent with the extensive federal statutory and regulatory framework pertaining to control of the airspace, flight management of and efficiency, air traffic control, aviation safety, navigational facilities, and the regulation of aircraft noise at its source. Presented below are general principles of federal law as they relate to aviation safety and examples of state and local laws that should be carefully considered prior to any legislation action to ensure that they are consistent with applicable federal safety regulations. The FAA's Office of the Chief Counsel is available for consultation on specific questions. Why the federal framework in the first place? So I think a lot of this is really important, and that's the only reason that I'm covering it, because it has come up in my city. I'm in a small town, little outside of town. It has come up with the city and the aldermen, and so they're considering enacting some type of drone public policy. So why the federal framework? Congress has vested the FAA with authority to regulate the areas of airspace use, management and efficiency, air traffic control, safety, navigational facilities, and aircraft noise at its source. 49 U.S.C. 40103, 44502, and 44701-44735. Congress has directed the FAA to develop plans and policy for the use of the navigable airspace and assign by regulation or order the use of airspace necessary to ensure the safety of aircraft and the efficient use of airspace. 49 U.S.C. 40103B. Section 1. Congress has further directed the FAA to prescribe air traffic regulations on the flight of aircraft, including regulations on safe altitudes, for navigating, protecting, and identifying aircraft, protecting individuals and property on the ground, using the navigable airspace efficiently, and preventing collision between aircraft and land or water vehicles, and between aircraft and airborne objects. 49 U.S.C. 40103, subsection B, section 2. A consistent regulatory system for aircraft and use of airspace has the broader effect of ensuring the highest level of safety for all aviation operations. To ensure the maintenance of a safe and sound air transportation system and of navigable airspace free from inconsistent restrictions, FAA has regulatory authority over matters pertaining to aviation safety. Regulating UAS operations. In 333 of the FAA Modernization and Reform Act of 2012, Public Law Number 112-95, Congress directed the Secretary to determine whether UAS operations posing the least amount of public risk and no threat to national security could safely be operated in the National Airspace System, NAS, and if so, to establish requirements for the safe operations of these systems in the NAS. On February 15, 2015, the FAA proposed a framework of regulations that would allow routine commercial use of certain small UAS in today's aviation system, while maintaining flexibility to accommodate future technological innovations. The FAA's notice of proposed rulemaking offered safety rules for small UAS under 55 pounds, conducting non-recreational or non-hobby operations. The proposed rule defines permissible hours of flight, line-of-sight observation, altitude, operation certification, optional use of visual observers, aircraft registration, and marking and operational limits. Consistent with its statutory authority, the FAA is requiring federal registration of UAS in order to operate a UAS. Registering UAS will help protect public safety in the air and on the ground, and the FAA in the enforcement of safety-related requirements for the operation of UAS, and build a culture of accountability and responsibility among users operating in U.S. airspace. No state or local UAS registration law may relieve a UAS owner or operator from complying with the federal UAS registration requirements. Because federal registration is the exclusive means for registering UASs for purposes of operating an aircraft in navigable airspace, no state or local government may impose an additional registration requirement on the operation of UAS in navigable airspace without first obtaining FAA approval. Substantial air safety issues are raised when state or local governments attempt to regulate the operation or flight of aircraft. If one or two municipalities enacted ordinances regulating UAS in the navigable airspace and a significant number of municipalities followed suit, fractionalized control of the navigable airspace could result. In turn, this patchwork quilt of differing restrictions could severely limit the flexibility of FAA in controlling the airspace and flight patterns, and ensuring safety and an efficient air traffic flow. A navigable airspace free from inconsistent state and local restrictions is essential to the maintenance of a safe and sound air transportation system. See Montalvo versus Spirit Airlines, 508 F3D 464, 9th Circuit in 2007, and French versus Pan Am Express Incorporated, 869 F2D 1, 1st Circle, 1989. I don't know what that means. See also Arizona versus US, 567 US _ 132 S Court 2492, 2502, and 2012, where Congress occupies an entire field, even complementary state regulations is impermissible. Field preemption reflects a congressional decision to foreclose any state regulation in the area, even if it's parallel to federal standards. And Morales versus Trans World Airlines Incorporated, 504 US 374 386-87, 1992. Some examples of state and local laws for which consultation with the FAA is recommended. Operational UAS restrictions on flight altitude, flight paths, operational bans, any regulation of the navigable airspace. For example, a city ordinance banning anyone from operating UAS within the city limits, within the airspace of the city, or within certain distances of landmarks. Federal courts strictly scrutinize state and local regulation of overflight. City of Burbank versus Lockheed Air Terminal, 411 U.S. 624 in 1973. SkySign International Incorporated versus City and County of Honolulu, 276 F3D 1109. 1117 9th Circuit, 2002. American Airlines versus Town of Hempstead, 398 F2D 369. 2nd Circuit, 1968. American Airlines versus City of Audubon Park, 407 F2D 1306, 6th Circuit, 1969. Great cases if you want to look those up and find out for yourself if, I or the FAA are full of crap. Mandating equipment for training for UAS related to aviation safety, such as geofencing, would likely be preempted. Courts have found that state regulation pertaining to mandatory training and equipment requirements related to aviation safety is not consistent with the federal regulatory framework. MedTrans Corporation versus Benton, 581 F supplemented 2D 721 740 ED-NC 2008. Air Evac EMS Incorporated versus Robinson, 486 F Soup 2D 713 722 MD Tennessee 2007. Examples of state and local laws within state and local government police power. Laws traditionally related to state and local police power, including land use, zoning, privacy, trespass, and law enforcement operations, generally are not subject to federal regulation. SkySign International Incorporated versus City and County of Honolulu, 276 F3D 1109, 1115 9th Circuit in 2002. Examples include requirement for police to obtain a warrant prior to using a UAS for surveillance, specifying that UAS may not be used for voyeurism, prohibitions on using UAS for hunting or fishing, or to interfere with or harass an individual who is hunting or fishing, prohibitions on attaching firearms or similar weapons to UAS, big fines for weaponizing your drones. Wouldn't do it, even if you want to. Contact information for questions. The FAA's Office of the Chief Counsel is available to answer questions about the principles yet set forth in this fact sheet and to consult with you about the interaction of federal, state, and local regulation of aviation, generally, and UAS operations specifically. You may contact the Office of Chief Counsel in Washington, D.C., or any of the following regional councils. There's a FAA office in D.C. at 202-267-3073. That would probably be, there's tons of locations you can get their numbers and all that information if you're interested. Let's see. Let's just see what Federal Regulation Title 14 in the Code Regulations Chapter 1. The U.S. Supreme Court has said Congress has recognized the national responsibility for regulating air commerce. Federal control is intensive and exclusive. Planes do not wander about in the sky like vagrant clouds. They move only by federal permission, subject to federal inspection, in the hands of federally certified personnel, and under an intricate system of federal commands. The moment a ship taxis onto a runway, it is caught up in an elaborate and detailed system of controls. It takes off only by instruction from the control tower. It travels on prescribed beams. It may be diverted from its intended landing, and it obeys signals and orders. Its privileges, rights, and protection, so far as transit is concerned, it owes to the federal government alone and not to any state government. Northwest Airlines versus the State of Minnesota, 322 U.S. 292-303 in 1944. Jackson R. concurring. If we were to uphold the Burbank Ordinance, which placed an 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. curfew on jet flights from the Burbank Airport, and a significant number of municipalities followed suit, it is obvious that fractionalized control of the timing of takeoffs and landings would severely limit the flexibility of FAA in controlling air traffic flow. The difficulties of scheduling flights to avoid congestion and the concomitant decrease in safety would be compounded. Burbank versus Lockheed Air Terminal Incorporated, 411 U.S. 624639 in 1973. The Federal Aviation Act requires a delicate balance between safety and efficiency and the protection of persons on the ground. The interpretance of these factors requires uniform and exclusive system of federal regulation if the congressional objectives underlying the Federal Aviation Act are to be fulfilled. Burbank at 638 through 639. The paramount substantive concerns of Congress in enacting the FAA Act were to regulate federally all aspects of air safety, and once aircraft were in flight, airspace management. Burbank at 644, Request J. Dissenting. The U.S. Court of Appeals has said air traffic must be regulated at a national level. Without uniform equipment specifications, takeoff and landing rules, and safety standards, it would be impossible to operate a national air transportation system. Gustafson versus City of Lake Angeles, 76 F3D 778, 792 to 793, 6th Circuit, 1996. Jones and concurring. The purpose, history, and language of the FAA Act led us to conclude that Congress intended to have a single uniform system for regulating aviation safety. The catalytic events leading to the enactment of the FAA Act helped generate this intent. The FAA Act was drafted in response to a series of fatal air crashes between civil and military aircraft operating under separate flight rules. In discussion, the impetus for the FAA Act, the Supreme Court has also noted that regulating the aviation industry requires delicate balance between safety and efficiency. It is precisely because of the independence of these factors that Congress enacted a uniform and exclusive system of federal regulation. Montalvo v. Spirit Airlines, 508 F3D, 464-471, 9th Circuit in 2007. Citing City v. Burbank v. Lockheed Air Terminal Incorporated, 411 U.S. 624, 638-39 in 1973. When we look to the historical impetus for the FAA, its legislative history, and the language of the FAA Act, it is clear that Congress intended to invest the administrator of the Federal Aviation Administration with the authority to enact exclusive air safety standards. Moreover, the administrator has chosen to exercise this authority by assuming each pervasive regulations that we can infer a preempt intent to displace all state law on the subject of our safety. That's Montalvo at 472. We similarly hold that federal law occupies this entire field of aviation safety. Congress' intent to dispute state law is implicit in the pervasiveness of the federal regulations, the dominance of the federal interest in the area, and the legislative goal of establishing a single uniform system of control over air safety. This holding is fully consistent with our decision in SkySign International Incorporated versus Honolulu, 276 F3D 1109, 9th Circuit, 2002, where we consider whether federal law preempted state regulation of aerial advertising that was distracting and potentially dangerous to persons on the ground. In upholding the state regulations, we held that federal law has not preempted altogether any state regulation purporting to reach into the navigable airspace. SkySign at 1116. While Congress may not have acted to occupy exclusively all of air commerce, it has clearly indicated its intent to be the sole regulator of aviation safety. The FAA, together with federal air safety regulations, establish complete and thorough safety standards and interstate and international air transportation that are not subject to supplementation by or variation among states. Montalvo at 473-474. We remark the Supreme Court's reasoning regarding the need for uniformity concerning the regulation of aviation noise. See City v. Burbank v. Lockheed, Terminal 411 U.S. 624-1973, and suggests that the same rationale applies here. In Burbank, the court struck down a municipal anti-noise ordinance placing a curfew on jet flights from a regional airport. Citing the pervasive nature of the scheme of federal regulation, the majority ruled that aircraft noise was wholly subject to federal hegemony. Again, however you say that, thereby preempting state or local enactments in the field. In our view, the pervasiveness of the federal web is as apparent as the matter of pilot qualification as in the matter of aircraft noise. If we upheld the Rhode Island statute as applied to airline pilots and a significant number of states followed suit, it is obvious that fractionalized control would severely limit the flexibility of the FAA, citing Burbank. Moreover, a patchwork of state laws in the airspace, some in conflict with the other, would create a crazy quilt effect. The regulation of interstate flight and flyers must of necessity be monolithic. Its very nature permits no other conclusion. In the area of pilot fitness, as in the area of aviation noise, the FAA Act, as we read it, leaves no room for local controls. Citing Burbank, French versus Pan Am Express Incorporated, 869 F2D1, 6th, First Circuit, 1989. And so that's basically what, that's all I got to say about that. And that's some background, and that's what the FAA, this has come out of the president, this has come out of, the highest office in the United States, and what their opinions are and where their stance is and how they feel that this UAS should be implemented in state, local municipalities. Hope you liked that video. Hope it helps somebody. Like and subscribe. I'm on to the next one.